What's up? It's Matt. Friday, I'm back from Miami. The other day was Chef Santiago from my hotel room. Today, I've got another restaurant expert, this time an author. We're going to talk to Mr. Cliff Bramble when we get back. I'll see you in a second. Cliff, I got to say, I love that beat. I always dance a little when it's going on. So tell the audience, who is Cliff Bramble, and then tell us about the book, The Business Side of Restaurants.
Well, Matt, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And a little bit about myself. I've been in the restaurant business for many years, almost about 40 years. The first time I really started in the restaurant business, it was a fun night. I made $5 that night, guys, $5. and when they handed me the $5 bill, they said, "Listen, you can have all the food and all the Coca-Cola you want to drink too." So anyway, I many years ago, I worked for Marriott Hotels for many years, opened up hotels for them in Southern California, out in Palm Desert, San Diego, La Jolla, Rancho La Mirage. That was in my early days, and from there I ended up in Atlanta. And I opened up a restaurant for a company called Buckhead Life Restaurant Group called Nava in 1995. Ended up being the general manager over there, and then managing one of their other places called Buckhead Bread Company. And in between, I started, myself and two other business partners started writing a business plan. I wrote the business plan for next restaurant. So myself and two other partners in 2004 started a company called Rathbun's Restaurant. I was one of the co-founders there. From there, then went to open up another place called Croc Bar. Then we opened up Kevin Rathbun Steak, and then we opened up KR Steak Bar. After that, I opened up another one by myself. It was called Noble Finn. Unfortunately, I had to close that in 2020, last year. That was open for 5 years. So I've been in the restaurant business for a long time. And I last year, with 2020 being the way it was, I got stuck behind a desk for quite some time. And I decided that I'm going to write a book. And I never thought I would do, but I did.
You did. I love it. What got the place you worked at for $5? What was that? Where was it?
It was in a little town called Coventry, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And it was a place called the PNA, the Polish National Alliance. And my grandfather and my grandmother got me the job there, and it was actually pretty cool. It was a big old, well, not a big one. I don't know, maybe 100 people in the upstairs area. But what was really cool was that all the grandparents or great grandparents, they volunteered all their time, and they made all the dinners. It was always the same dinner, a turkey dinner. It was like Thanksgiving dinner every single Saturday night there.
That's my jam.
It was good. But, I'll tell you the bad part about it was the kitchen was downstairs, right? I'm bringing back my memory here. It's been a long time, but the kitchen was downstairs, and we had to carry, these big old oval trays up 15 to 20 stairs that went straight up, and they were filled with food, number one. And then when you got to the top, you put all. Now, to this day, I still remember saying to the gentleman who hired me, "Why do we put all these 100 glasses on top of a big old oval tray and then roll them through the dining room? Because sooner or later they're going to hit a chair, right?" And what do you think happened? So every once a month, 100 glasses all tipped over, all the wine, and people would clap back then. And I even maybe that was my management, even at 16 years old, saying to myself, "Why would we do this to ourselves every week?"
And the answer probably is that's how we've always done it. So we keep doing it.
It was one of those things. Don't worry about it. And that, of course, as you go on and you gain more experience, you kind of think about those times where you learned a lot.
Okay. Well, love it. Well, let's dig into the book, because I haven't read the whole book. So full disclosure, I've read a lot of chapters, a lot of sections of it. And I like how it's put together. You can systematically go through it. The chapters aren't 500 pages. So I think that's one thing that's important to me. But we'll go right to the first section that I got my pages dog-haired here. And I figured this was the best topic to start with because of what's happening right now. And I want to talk about human resources. I just got back from a conference in Miami. I was there for 3 days. And the one thing that resonated with the audience, a bunch of high-level 7-figure CEOs at this conference I was at, and some people that are almost 7-figure, we're talking about quality of workplace, how you treat your employees, what happens. And the one thing I've always said, I've marveled at the restaurant business because I've been around it for a while from a outside eye. Like I've never worked hardcore in a restaurant for 20 years, but I've watched and I've always marveled at how shitty people are traditionally treated. You talk about human resources and needing things, but the crazy hours, the one thing I liked a lot of restaurants that do right is, the flexible shifts and things like that. But talk about the restaurant business and not necessarily the check boxes on human resources, what you can or can't say, because I break all those rules. But how you treated your employees and what restaurants should do, because I think right now a lot of the problem with the pandemic with staffing is because a lot of restaurants haven't been attractive to employees in the past. So why the hell would they go there?
Well, you know what? That's a really good point. And you hear a lot of negative news, I guess you can say, about restaurant people right now and how they were treated and how they're working long hours. And you hear that, but you don't hear it from some of the best restaurants out there.
Oh, I
Some of
agree.
the best restaurants that are out there, you ask yourself, why aren't people, why don't they have a problem? Well, you know why? They treat their employees really well. They make sure that they're getting paid. They make sure that they're not hiring too many people. And you know what? They're listening to their employees as well. Because if you have somebody who is just not a good employee and they're not happy with what they're doing, well, then they need to get out of the business. It's the end of the story.
Yeah.
But if you want to have a restaurant, and I'll give you a couple case in points, a couple examples. Before I had to close down Noble Finn in 2020.
Yep.
And what did I do? Well, I made sure every one of those employees, when I was closed for 8 weeks, every single employee, they got their full pay plus 20%.
Wow.
And there were 38 employees. And the nice part about it, my theory was really simple. It was, hey, when I reopen, I want to make sure all my employees are here because these guys had been with me for 2 years,
Yep.
if not more. Some of them there for 5 years. So taking care of those people, the day that I reopened, the day that I had to reopen, everybody was there. All the cooks were there, the managers were there, the chefs were there. It's really about taking care of the people. You have to take care of the people. You have to listen to them. And these days, there's a lot more. My kids taught me something many, many years ago. When I first had kids, I was like, wow. You know what they taught me? They taught me compassion and something that I didn't have enough of. And I'll be the first to admit it. But when you have kids, all of a sudden, the compassion is there, and you have to have that same compassion to some of your employees that are there as well, because if you don't take care of those employees, they won't take care of your guests. Number one, they're going to be your worst marketing ever. So you
Yep.
need to take care of the employees. And if you do take care of them, they're going to take care of you. They're going to take care of your guests. Everybody's going to be happy. But right now, the individuals who have not taken care of them in the past are the ones that are probably having the challenge, who continue to go through people time and time. And where does that come from? It comes from the management experience. You can't hand somebody a key and say, here you go, manage my restaurant. If they don't have the HR experience, they don't have the financial background. And unfortunately, there's a lot of absentee owners that sometimes that happens independent wise, not on the chain side, because they usually have pretty good training. But it's normally, in my opinion, it's really on the independent side.
Yeah.
That
And
makes
I
sense?
agree. Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And the one thing you said there that sticks out to me is, that marketing line. That's your worst marketing, is when you have poor management, you treat your employees bad, they don't care about your customers. That's bad marketing on the floor. The other place that's bad marketing is when they go home and it's a spouse or a roommate or a friend.
That,
I think my last 5 or 6 employees have come from referrals from current employees because they
yeah,
go home excited to be involved with what we're doing. If somebody goes home from your restaurant, like my boss is a jackass and the place is hot. Like I was at a restaurant recently, there was no air conditioning in the kitchen. And it was in Arkansas. And it's like, geez, man, like, how does that happen? And they go home miserable. Nobody wants to go, oh, sign me up for that.
yeah, that's right. Can I have 4 more hours, please? Standing behind that grill, 1,800 degrees.
So next part, and I want to get your feedback on this one. I've got a little story to go with it, not the restaurant part, but step 12, page 112, which was a good coincidence, 112 and 12. I don't know if you did that to mess with me, but inventory. By the way, I love your use of QR codes. It's
Oh,
a
good.
great tool. It's easy to go and find guides and find steps and find the message from you. So that's awesome. I love what you did there. But
Well, thank you.
inventory, my first experience learning the ins and outs of inventory. We had a family boat and RV dealership that we owned for 8 years. And we had I guess the showroom was 13,000 square feet. I think the top floor where our fishing tackle department was 3,000. So we had a lot of bass fishing and catfish and all that kind of stuff, fishing poles, reels, rods. And I'll never forget, we kept wondering why that department sucked and why it was unprofitable. And so I had an inventory company come in, and they came in, and I also was trying to where our cash was going. So this inventory company comes in, has their little machines. They go through, like you've seen them in gas stations. They do their thing, and they come up with that we have 280 grand in inventory in retail. Well, our retail sales the prior year in fishing tackle were 120 grand. And so I looked at it and I'm like, Gary, like, do you not, we want to hit like 4 to 6 turns. Like, what's a turn? I'm like, well, this means we've got 3 years of fishing tackle sitting in the store, basically.
Yeah.
We want to have like 2 to 3 months. And that was my first experience realizing what that drain did, because I couldn't figure out why our cash flow was so bad and why we weren't able to do things we should. Talk about the inventory world in the restaurant part of the world.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's really easy to get carried away in inventory. Now, inventory, I'll give a couple case in points. Inventory, typically you open up a restaurant or any given day, you have 25, depends on what type of restaurant, 25 to $40,000 worth of inventory in your walk-in, right?
Yep.
So, what do I guess more experienced people every single day when they come in, the first thing they do, especially a chef, for example, they're coming in, they're walking through their kitchen, they're walking through their walk-in, they're checking what they have, making sure anything that is old is first one out, and so forth, But it's when you don't check that, and I'm guilty of that on the beverage side. For example, if I'm buying my liquor, and if I have $100,000 worth of liquor, beer, wine, liquor on my walls, for example, if I'm sitting behind the desk looking at my sheet on every single week and I'm not going to the wall checking my inventory for what I have just off the top of my head, or checking my POS, my sales mixes, I will be the guy who orders, oh, okay, just give me a case of this, give me 4 cases of this, and it all comes in, and guess what? It's COD. So all of a sudden I'm like, okay, man, we just bought all this stuff, and it was my mistake because I knew I should have went out there and checked it and counted it, but I didn't, so it does happen. But what, the challenge is it like in Georgia, for example, when you buy beer, wine, and liquor, you have to pay cash. And
Yep.
now even with food, there's a lot of vendors in Georgia that are asking for cash rather than 7-day terms or 20
Yep.
days, 24 days terms. So what happens is, all of a sudden, where's your cash going? If your sales isn't coming in, well,
Yep.
where's your cash going? So what you want to do is you really want to have and I mentioned this in the book, the managers really have to think like an owner. And I know some clients that actually say, okay, there's only $4,000 that you have to buy this week in food, or there's only $10,000 that you have to buy in wine. Well, that's doable, but you have to change your wine list, you have to change your prices, you have to change your POS all the time, and it's a consistent a large amount of work too,
Yep.
So you can get carried away very easily. And also, by the way, when a vendor comes up to you and say, hey, listen, if you buy 4 cases, you get 1 free, so you sit back and you go, hey, that's pretty good, I saved this. But yes, you saved 200, but you spent 900.
Yep. And I can relate to that. And the one thing I'll say about, like I mentioned Gary, my example earlier, it wasn't Gary's fault. It was my fault. I was in charge of Gary. It was my business, and I didn't train him correctly. And you look back a year later and you're like, wow, like, and that's one thing a lot of times, I'm pretty self-aware now. In my 20s, then I wasn't. I was yelling at Gary and he was an idiot, and it was my fault. And it was like, actually, I'm the idiot. I didn't train Gary. I wasn't paying enough attention. It's my money. I had the same exact thing you mentioned there. I'll never forget this. We opened up the store and we got about a year or 2 in, and we're looking at the end of the season, and we got all these small, extra small life vests. And it was because early in the season, our land and sea rep was like, hey, by the way, we've got a life vest promo. We only needed 20. If you buy 40, you get 15 free. Well, at the end of the year, I got life vests that would fit like, I don't even know who, because they wouldn't fit. They were too big for kids and too little for adults, but it was a deal. And that's one thing I think it's important to recognize, that these companies will always have a deal, but is the deal right for your cash flow right then?
Well, it's a good point. And the other thing is, if you're counting, like in the RV business, for example, if I think that's what you said it was.
Yeah.
If you're counting the number of people coming in day, there's only 40 people a day coming in. You sit back and say, okay, well, if I got 500, man, I got to have an extra 50 people every day buy the same thing, you know?
Oh yeah, I wasn't the smartest one. I fell for all the tricks back in the day, man. All of them. So, last but not least, like you said when you came on, you're a marketing guy. I'm a marketing guy. Step 3, marketing, and something you mentioned in here was talking about grabbing data. And we're in the process right now of, we have a website that's under development. It's gonna be really simple, but it's got some pretty cool data behind it. And I want to get your opinion on this. So, there's 6 things that I look for. Like when me and my team mystery shop restaurants, and when we visit, like our vans are on the road right now. They're in, I don't know where they're at. What is today? Friday. They're in Cincinnati, Ohio. Those vans visit on average 1,500 locations a year starting this year. And next year we'll have 2. So it's 3,000 restaurants next year. And as we add vans, it's 1,500. And so our goal in a year or 2 is to look back and show hardcore data. So the 6 questions that we answer on this app, a mystery shopping app that goes to us, that we're reporting so people can see the slippery slope they're on, but also see the opportunity. Question number 1 is the restaurant doing anything visible in the restaurant to gather customer data? A QR code on a table saying scan here for a free burrito. Question number 2 is that same mechanism on their website? Question 3 is, did an employee actively sell you on taking that step? Question 4 is, do they have engagement on their social media? Question 5 is their website mobile friendly? And question 6 is, do they have a menu that's a PDF, not a actual menu on their website? And what we found is that the website mobile friendly is usually pretty much across the board. The PDF one's 50-50. The other aspects of it, those items that are on there, the in-store data capture. I mean, 9 out of 10 restaurants we go to do not capture data of the most important people, which are the people parking and walking in your restaurant, handing you money. And then the ones that do suck at asking you. So those are the items we use mystery shop, that we use to educate restaurants. Thoughts, comments?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I am a marketing guy. I'm marketing and finance. I have a book coming out. We're going to talk about it at a different time, but it has a lot of information about what you're talking about, exact of that. So the data, what you're talking about, the PDF, that's fantastic. You know, what we're doing is, and what you're doing, for example, is you're educating basically the restaurateur or the managers. And are you educating the owner as well? Because that's important too. If the owner says, hey, listen, we need to put a PDF on the website, boom, that's great. Hey, listen, is our SEO, is it correct? That's great. Well, if you go up onto and you look at somebody's source code on a website and you look at the titles empty and their meta tags are all empty, well, all of a sudden, bam, you're sitting there saying, okay, well, that's why your relevance on Google is really not there. So, you know, when it comes down to it, yeah, the QR code's great. The PDF is great. The data, you know, the data capture is this. I'm going to give you one of my keys that I've done for years. Okay. And you can steal it if you want it. It's a no brainer, you know, but, you know, right now there's a lot going on with the whole delivery aspect. Okay. And the data that you don't get from your delivery. But the independent restaurants, okay, one of the things that I like to really, and I talk with my clients, is, hey, listen, you need to have the data from the information from the people that are coming in here. And I dealt with this with a client who was actually a hair salon many years ago, and she wasn't gathering all of her data. She wanted to move to another company, and I said, okay, well, where's all your data of all your people? She didn't have any email list, didn't have anybody's phone number. Okay. And only had the first name. So here we are. And I'm sitting back. I said, okay, well, here's the thing. From now on, here's a little card. It has it when they walk in. I want every single name and every phone number and their email. Well, I did that for some of the restaurants that I co-owned previously, as well as my restaurant. And I'm going to tell you what, 5,000 emails in a matter of 2 or 3 years because I captured them. But you put them on a little card, they fill them out. But what do you do with them from there? Then you have to go to Constant Contact or MailChimp, for example, and somebody has to punch that stuff in for you. So I look at it as the data that's there and acknowledging the fact that their website having, as soon as you go onto a website, if I went onto your website, hopefully there's a little pop-up that says, hey, I'm gathering information here. Can I get your email? That's a goal that I think every restaurateur should have. But more importantly, also the data, if they're looking at their analytics on their website, it's a good thing for them to know and know where their guests are coming from, whether it's Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever it may be. So if they want to market to them, they can as well. And if they have the analytics of the search data of what they're searching for to get to that website, that's more power for them too. So, you're right on. There's some great points that you have there. They have to have the PDF. They have to have the QR codes. People are asking for technology now. End of story,
Well, I want to show you something then. Since you mentioned it, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. I'm going to have to put my glasses on, but I could see it.
So our expertise, and we know each other a little, but not great, but this is for the audience too. What you mentioned is great. Like our average client we work with, and we work with hundreds of restaurants across the country, averages between 500 to 700 people's data every month. So we've got restaurants, like we had one client the other day in the last 6 months, there are 5 locations, 28,000 name, gender, email, visit frequency, phone number. So
Awesome.
my screen here, I don't know if I can zoom in on this real quick. I should be able to zoom in. Let's see. And that way we just focus on the phone part. It might not. Okay, so this screen, when somebody scans that QR code on your table, when your server says, hey, scan this QR code to get a free burrito, when you're on the website and they click a button and it opens a window up, when you're on a Facebook post or a different ad we run, they click the link or comment, it takes them to Messenger, to our tool called Database Dynamite. It comes in and the first thing it asks them is, thanks for joining. Below, let us know how often you visit, in this case, Black Rock, Grand Rapids, so we can know who you are. And it says, I haven't been before. I come every week. I come every once in a while. I rarely come. And that helps us classify them as a new frequent or lost customer. And then it literally asks them, great, what is the best cell phone number to text you at? They choose it. Are you opting in for text messaging? Yes. Your email address, your birthday. It stores all of this on the back end. The cool thing about this is it's automatic. 2, you're getting their gender and you're getting their name as well, because it's automatically in Facebook and Instagram. And then their email and phone already pop up. But the awesome part about this also is that this triggers a 90-day email and text sequence based on what they said, new, lost, or frequent. And it triggers Facebook and Instagram ads so that these people are all of a sudden targeted in a way like never before. And you don't forget about them, and there's no manual entry, and it's all done automatically. But we do that for hundreds of restaurants. I thought you might like that since you mentioned gathering.
That's awesome. It's really, I'll give you an example. I tried this out a little while ago, and I've started this other thing called off of my book, The Business Side of Restaurants, another thing called Corsini, which is an online restaurant industry academy. And there's 50 different business courses in there. And one of those courses is on marketing, similar to what you're saying. But I can tell you what, if you have all this information and you have the emails, people will, they're not, I'm on email list that I signed up for 25 years ago, and I'm still getting emails that I didn't unsubscribe from. Now what am I looking at? I'm looking at the subject heading. So, the subject heading is always more important. So even if you're capturing that data, that's great. But one thing that a lot of people don't really pay attention to right now, and I'm a firm believer in saving it, is people's phone numbers. If you can get people's phone numbers and the emails, well, I can tell you this little phone right here gets text messages every single day. Now, I know text message marketing is expensive. It's 90 cents to $1 for every single one, but the immediacy and how people get that text is so much more quicker than an email. But they respond very quickly as well. So,
by the way, we've got our system has texting for a penny a text.
That's a great deal. So, I mean, anybody who, if they're not using that, honestly, I'm going to give you a great endorsement. That's a great deal.
Well, I mean, it comes down to, like I tell restaurants all the time, a lot of them, they look at marketing as they're spending money now, like inventory. Yes, you're buying inventory now to sell. Marketing, if you do it correctly, if you gather data, if you get attention, you're building a database for the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. It's not that first, like for example, our average client, it costs between $5 to $7 to acquire a customer's data that visits the restaurant. So we know that first visit. Well, you're not worried about the 5 or 7 on visit one. You should be worried about the fact that it only costs you $5 or $7 to get the next 50 visits if you use the data.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, I mean, people have to do, I say people, but restaurants, they need to do everything they possibly can because the expenses keep on going high. People are looking at their dollars. I mean, and they're saying, wow, man, that steak is not $4 an ounce anymore for a filet. It's $8.50 and $9 an ounce. So, when I used to go into, for years, I've always had my kids say, yeah, order whatever you want. Now I look at the steak and I say to myself, can I fathom that? I can't comprehend spending $85 for a 6-ounce steak. So I'm like, no, order the burger.
Yeah, burger. So Cliff, what's a way that people can contact you, find out more information about you? The best website.
Yeah, the website is hungryhospitality.com. It's basically Hungry Hospitality is in, we have a bunch of different things. We have books, we have online courses. It's really a restaurant consulting company, and we can really help independents, franchises, whatever it may be. So we're happy to help anybody who is in the restaurant industry, and they like the restaurant industry too. I can't find any good employees if you're treating them bad though. So treat them good.
Treat them good. Well, hey, I appreciate you being on. It's Friday. Let's go in the weekend with a bang. I appreciate you being on here. I appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
Thanks again. Nice talking to you.
See you, Cliff.